Couple of gritty vets going at it this weekend. In the middleweight division, we have the Wolverine Omari Akhmedov taking on Hawaii's Brad Tavares. And for Brad Tavares, he has spent the bulk of his career at Extreme Couture. And this is a guy that, believe it or not, has a win over Phil Baroni when they used to still name fight cards in the UFC. It was UFC 125 Resolution. That's crazy. I mean, I think of Phil Baroni as the guy that knocked out Dave Mene that one time, and the guy who ended up in a brawl at the end of Mark Coleman Shogun Rua with Pride, but Brad Tavares beat him in the UFC, and now he's taking on the Wolverine Omari Akhmedov, who happens to be, 2 months older? Like, how crazy is that? It seems to me like it was only yesterday when Omari Akhmedov came into the UFC, and maybe his time for you has been entirely forgettable, but this is a guy that has a draw against a former title challenger in Marvin Vettori. He's 4-1 in his last 5. His only loss there to a former champion in Chris Weidman. I mean, for Omari Akhmedov, he strikes to clinch, he clinches to get the takedown. He can work really good when he's on the ground, and that's what makes this fight so much fun. Because for Brad Tavares, he was on a 2-fight losing streak before his last fight where, I mean, did he have one foot out the door? Like, he just didn't look very good in those losses, but now they've kind of aged because of the names that he took on. And you look at the Brad Tavares that fought Antonio Carlos Jr. the last time he was out there, like, holy frig, this guy's a world beater.
Yeah, he did, and he looked like he made a lot of improvements later on in his career, which is impressive, especially for a guy like Brad Tavares, which you mentioned. He's been around for a long time, and the wildest stat about Brad Tavares isn't just the fact that he fought Phil Baroni. He went almost 10 years between stoppage wins. I know you've got the stat, but he mainly wins by decision, and it's weird because you have two guys who, normally when they do win, it is by decision, and that's what makes this fight so interesting, because for Brad Tavares here, I guess you can get to the numbers, then I'll go.
Brad Tavares, most wins in middleweight history by decision at 11. That's tied for second most in the UFC. GSP, Diego Sanchez, and Neil Magny all have 12. The other one that I wanted to bring up really quickly, total cage time in the middleweight division. Michael Bisping, number 1, 5 hours, 15 minutes, 15 seconds. Talis Leites, number 2, 4 hours, 23 minutes, 53 seconds. Brad Tavares, number 3. He spent 4 hours, 8 minutes, and 5 seconds in the cage in the UFC. That's insane.
It really is, and he's been around fighting top guys for a really long time, too. It's not like Brad Tavares, he fights like once a year, and I guess that was the case for a few years there, but it is nice that Brad Tavares has been able to find a little bit of consistency, throughout the past couple years. But this is a really odd fight for Brad Tavares, and oddly enough, stylistically, this is a very favorable matchup for Brad Tavares, because when you just look at the bare bones game of Brad Tavares, well, what does he do really well? He can defend the takedowns, he's a good but not great striker, and I have to get some flack for this, for saying this now, because I said this before the Antonio Carlos Jr. fight, and yeah, his striking looked better in that fight, don't get me wrong, but when Brad Tavares fights the Robert Whitakers of the world, I'll even throw like Derek Brunson in that category too. Like when he fights those upper echelon guys who have good power behind their shots, he does have to mix in his offensive wrestling a lot more. But when he's fighting wrestlers like Omari Akhmedov, he is really good at just defending a lot of the takedowns, forcing his opponent to work a lot, especially early on in the fight, and then bringing in his own game as the fight continues. And for Omari Akhmedov, it is kind of interesting. You look at his last loss, what happened in the Chris Weidman fight? He gets off to a really good start. He's able to grapple a little bit with Chris Weidman, and then exactly. Once that second round comes around, you're like, okay, Akhmedov held his own a little bit with the grappling with Weidman. I'm interested to see what these next 10 minutes will look like. It was one man very, very tired, and the other guy just consistently out-grappling him. Transition after transition after transition. And for Akhmedov, I do think he'll be able to get at least one takedown in this fight. Brad Tavares is a really hard guy to get down to the mat, but he's a really hard guy to keep down as well. And that's really what this fight's going to come down to. I think Akhmedov can go out there and get an offensive takedown on Brad Tavares. I don't doubt that for 1 second. But will he be able to hold Brad Tavares down? That's what it comes down to for me. And it's weird because Omari Akhmedov, oddly enough, has been able to hold down some really good grapplers, but other poor grapplers have been able to pop right back up to their feet. So this fight really does come down to how well can Brad Tavares get back up to the feet. And here's the other thing. I know who's going to win the third round if this fight comes to the third round. Without a doubt in my mind, Brad Tavares is going to win the third round if Akhmedov and him find their way to that third round. So for me, it is, can Akhmedov finish Brad Tavares? It's a really hard ask. Like, I know we get on Brad Tavares because he doesn't get a lot of finish wins, but it's a double-edged sword. He doesn't get finished a lot himself. He's a very defensively sound fighter, and even when he fought Adesanya, like, Adesanya basically picked him apart for 25 minutes, but he never went down once, and it wasn't even like he got wobbled. Like, he just got hit clean a lot, and maybe that's not a great thing, but still, he was a game guy throughout those 25 minutes, and for Omari Akhmedov, I know that he might be game for 5 minutes, and then after those 5 minutes, I've got a lot of question marks, so for me, I actually really like Brad Tavares in this fight.
It's a really close fight. If we look at it in terms of the numbers, both guys are kind of below average in terms of their output, but also what they receive in the octagon. Brad Tavares, a slightly crisper fighter. He also has better takedown defense, 79% compared to Akhmedov's 65%. Akhmedov, the guy that's better with the takedowns. He averages more takedowns. If you look at the odds for this fight, it's kind of weird because Brad Tavares open to minus 190. He's a minus 164 right now. Omari Akhmedov open to a plus 165. He's now at a plus 135 or thereabouts. And over on Tapology, it's surprised us as it is to you. 1,404 total votes, 66% Akhmedov, 82% by decision. The 34% that have Tavares, 77% by decision. So maybe if the over-under is set at either 1.5 or 2.5, you really like that because a lot of people think it's going to go to decision. Obviously, I told you, Brad Tavares is the decision king at middleweight. And if you look at it for Omari Akhmedov out of his last 5, Tim Boetsch, decision. He beat Zach Cummins by decision. He beat Ian Heinisch by decision. He lost by decision to Chris Weidman. The Tom Breeze fight in his last one was back and forth in the first round. Breeze did a good job. Then at the end of the first round, he got a little busy off his back. Then in the second round, he kept wanting to get busy off his back. And then Omari Akhmedov sucked in the choke. And the referee just kind of went, hey, Tom, you still there? Like, it was a weird stoppage. It really was. But it was a great win for Omari Akhmedov. And I don't discount any of his talents. I think both of these guys are very skilled. Omari Akhmedov is just pressure, and he doesn't give up unless he gets tired. For Brad Tavares, he can work on the outside. He can strike in combination. He can throw some really good leg kicks, and he defends the takedowns very well.
Exactly. For all those reasons, I'm finding it really hard not to pick Brad Tavares. It is odd because you bring up the ages. Like, I think of Brad Tavares as being like 28 years old, even though he isn't anymore. And this is a really important fight for him. Like, are you a contender or not? That's been the question about Brad Tavares for about 10 years now. And I do think that this fight's really going to tell us which one he is.
Brad Tavares, contender, pretender, forever, number 14. For me, I've got Brad Tavares as well, going with the Hawaiian to get the win. I can't wait for this fight. You let us know down below in the comments section who you have in this middleweight showcase. Couple of guys that have popped in and out of the rankings. You let us know what you're thinking about Fight Night picks as well. Toss us a like and a sub if you don't mind. And Matt, we've got a big time card coming up with UFC 264. McGregor and Poirier in their third installment. You're not going to want to miss any of the other videos. Keep locked in with Fight Night picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.